And welcome back. Father's Day may have passed, but for one father, its meaning lingers far beyond a single Sunday. For him, the day served as a powerful reminder of the journey he's walked, one shaped by identity, resilience, and a condition that's impacting three generations of his family: cleft, lip, and palate. Joining us now is the Director of Wellbeing Institute at the Hudson Valley LGBTQ Center, Johnathan Hornig. And thank you, Johnathan, for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And so I want to take the time and ask you a little bit about this because, as I said, Father's Day has come, it's gone, but for you, definitely, it feels a little bit different. And how does it feel different for you, given the fact that, you've embraced your journey so openly?
For me, as a father, I learned a long time ago, it takes minutes to be a father, but it takes a lifetime to be a dad. And somebody who is cleft affected and having a father who is cleft affected and having a son who's cleft affected makes it that much more intimate in the relationship that we all have. So it was my goal to try to erase a bit of the trauma that's associated with having a cleft. So to show up and be more present in my son's life. Unfortunately, my father's trauma didn't allow him to be as present in my life, even though he did his best.
Yeah. When you talk about the cleft journey, for somebody that may not be so familiar, how do you define cleft?
Well, I would say what I will say straight off is cleft is not a defect. Cleft is a birth condition that the tissues in utero on the lip and the palate don't form together. And children are born with either a unilateral cleft where it's one opening or bilateral where it's two openings. And every 3 minutes, a baby is born with a cleft lip and palate.
Yeah. And so for yourself, fatherhood has had a great effect. When we talk about that effect, the ability to kind of like reframe some things. As you look at reframing, how do you put it in perspective now, given the fact that you've had to reframe to family and also for yourself?
Yeah, for me, I was born in Lower Westchester, Mount Vernon. I, was raised a little bit more with an edge. So being a dad and coming into my heart center was a choice I had to make. I had a lot of friends that were having kids, but weren't as present. But my goal, and I think having a cleft helped me see life a lot differently. Because when you're othered by constantly having surgeries and looking different, you tend to view life, and people in life tend to view you differently. So my goal again was to be more present and heart-centered with my son.
And as you conversate and converse, I should say converse with your son, what are those conversations like? How are you able to, just be so forthright and share your experience?
Well, what working with Smile Train, the organization, it's a massive organization, and it's taught me a lot over the years that we're not disabled. We don't. There's nothing wrong with who we are based on how we look, and that is a wonderful gift. Being a part of Smile Train has taken me into a we. It's great. There's such a massive community. Since 1999, they've been around for over 25 years, and they have been supportive of over 2 million surgeries. Growing up, I didn't know anybody who had cleft, and that added more to my stigma, and I was determined not to allow that to happen in my job.
So you got, here you are, you're trying to really navigate this. You didn't get a lot of information coming in, but talk to me about some of the, the stereotypes, the mystiques that you had to really debunk in order to get yourself to a place of peace and then also to speak to others.
Yeah, unfortunately, growing up, with I had the unfortunate view of myself as being born to be fixed. I felt I was broken because I didn't have any other view. So I unfortunately went down a darker path of self medication and living a very darker life for a very long time. And then having a child shifted my energy to really say, "Hey, I have a choice here. This is my legacy. My child is my legacy, and how do I want to leave this world?" And I chose to leave it a lot better than it was when I first got here.
I was getting some notes from our producer. One of the things that really stuck out for me was you said the deepest healing wasn't in surgery, but actually it was in learning to see yourself as whole. Um, how do you unpack that?
You know, through and I'll say it again, through Smile Train and this wonderful community that I've developed, I've learned that I am so much more than what I look like. That I defined myself for so long based on what I look like, based on other people's views of me, and it it is far. I am far from that. I am so multifaceted, and with the great community and Smile Train, and knowing meeting people that are my age and older that have cleft, I never thought it was possible.
Mm-hmm.
And what a gift. And in July we're all going to get together in Orlando for CleftCon and have this wonderful weekend of togetherness. And at 56 years old, that's where the wholeness comes from.
Yeah. Your ability to give back now, what's that like for you?
Giving back is my love language. Being of service, being able to show up here today and talk about part of my journey, talk about fatherhood. That in and of itself is the greatest gift I can give. That's my philanthropy. And doing the work I do here at the community center up here in Hudson Valley, as a therapist, helping people see their worth, despite what the world thinks of them, is a great gift.
Yeah. So you're going to be a guest panelist at and speaking at Life After, or I should say, the panel is Life After the Scar. And
Yes.
as you talk about life after the scar, what is it that you, without giving away the whole panel discussion, right? What is it that you want to be able to share with people that they can take away from your experience, that they can live with, that can help them to live on?
Again, I think it's more that we are who we are. Um, and at times our identities form as a product of other people's visions of us. And it's the goal is for me to translate to people that we are so much more. We are multi-leveled, multi-dimensional individuals with a community here, um, that is beyond anything anybody can imagine. That you are not alone, and Smile Train really helps me get that way.
I gotta run, but before I run, I gotta ask this question here because you had three generations in your family that really dealt with clef and lived with it. Were you able to even find community within your family as you navigated for yourself?
Unfortunately, my dad, was born in 1943 and had a lot of trauma from that. I was born in 1969. I didn't know much, and my son was born in 1991, 8 years before Smile Train started. So there wasn't a lot of education. But now I'm learning how to reparent myself, and I'm teaching my son, who's 34, how to reparent some of those inner parts through my work with Smile Train. It's quite wonderful.
Yeah. Jonathan, it's been great talking to you. Congratulations. And listen, much love and success to you. And as you go forth on that panel, may you break a leg and be at your best. Thanks a lot for taking the time with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me back. I graduated from Lehman in 2000, so it's good to be back.
Oh, good to have you here. Good to have you here. All righty. Well,
All right.
if we want to tell our viewers, if you want more information, guess what? Visit the website at smiletrain.org. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We'll be back more open. That's coming up right after this.